Okay, Mark, it's less than 12 hours before your 222-kilometer run. How are you feeling?
What I really liked about this race, what it seemed to be when I first heard about it, was, wow, somebody in India is trying to do something that sounds kind of impossible, and they're just going for it.
Standing at the starting line 2 years ago, what is going to happen? We had no idea.
All right, Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, I think I said to Rajat, I don't want to die on this race, because at that point it was an unknown.
I started yesterday we started at like 6:30 a.m., but I had to take a break last night in the hospital.
Molly started suffering pretty early on in the run, which I wasn't expecting.
Okay, Bill, how are you feeling?
I'm actually not feeling very well.
I got a message that Bill was in the hospital.
After a while, it sort of dawned on me that this is wrong. This is wrong. Gotta get going. We've got to get down, because we could actually just fall asleep here and die.
I didn't want to think about the possibility of the fact that he just died.
I thought, well, either this is going to be a story about humans doing something that nobody thought possible before, or it's going to be one of these sort of into thin air mess ups where somebody ends up dying. And, you know, the journalist in me thought, well, either way, I can't really lose. It's going to be a great story.
In 2009, because I'd moved to Delhi, so had lost a little bit of time kind of, with my crazy ultra running. I gave a call to a friend saying, dude, do you want to go to Manali and let's run? He was like, when do you want to do that? I was like, Friday. You have 1.5 days.
What's interesting about India is it has everything. You need desert, you need mountains like Himalayas, you need whatever, it's all there. So I was just thinking, like, why can't we just have it in our own backyard when we have Himalayas here and no one else does? And it was never supposed to be a race. It was just supposed to be for me, with friends, just go there, do it.
Went to Manali. Manali is at 6,000 feet. And the plan was to run to Rohtang Pass. Rohtang Pass is called the Pass of Dead Bodies, or Piles of Dead Bodies. And we decided we'll run from Manali to Rohtang Pass, 51 kilometers. While we were running up it, from Manali to Rohtang Pass, it was tough because whatever we could see, those mountains just weren't moving. They weren't coming closer to us. They were just there, wherever they were. And there's a picture I have where both of us are kind of looking up, and it's like, how high is this thing? It's just not coming. It's just so high.
And we couldn't do that. We managed halfway through, so we did something like 20-25 kilometers, and we were completely out of breath. Luckily for us, the road was blocked, so our egos weren't hurt very badly.
So I was at the internet cafe that night, and while I was at the internet cafe, there was an altitude map of Manali to Leh. And, it's like waves just going up. I'm like, man, this is great. And you need to remember that, I was exhausted. I stopped at 30 kilometers. And here I was looking at this map, I'm like, yeah, man, I found something here. Why can't we run from Manali to Leh then? If it's 500 kilometers, so what? Went back, and some friend who's in the army got me in touch with the Indian Army headquarters, Adventure Wing. Spoke to the guys there saying, this is what I have in mind. And they looked at me in a very weird way saying, you lost it, man.
Basically, they were talking about, you'll have to take a break at 9,000 feet for 4-5 days and then again at 13,000 feet. And so I was like, what if we acclimatize better and we start from a higher altitude and come down? And they had no answer to that. They were like, yes, it can be done in theory, but you guys can't do it because it's so cold and it's wind chill is like this and stuff like that.
So I'm sitting in Delhi in my home office, and it's summertime. And summertime in Delhi, I mean, no joke, there was one time I learned it was 50 degrees Celsius, and I did the conversion, and it's like 130 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, it is just so hot in the summer there. Even when you have ACs going on in every room, you're still sitting at your desk trying to do work, and sweat is pouring down your face. So summertime in Delhi is miserable, and you know, you're always looking for excuses to get out of town. And so in my inbox pops this press release, and it talks about this race up in Ladakh, which is in sort of the highest mountains of India, where it's nice and cool. And I'm a mountain guy, and you know, I'm looking for any sort of excuse to find stories in that part of the world.
On Facebook, I got a message from Rajat, and the message was, "Hi Molly, you know, I noticed that you finished Badwater. Would you like to come to my race in the Himalayas?" I didn't even think for a second. The answer was yes.
One day, Molly calls me up and says that she had just been contacted about a race in India that is going to be running over an 18,000-foot peak. Right away said, wow, I want to do that.
Someone emailed me with a link for the high, and I looked it up, and originally I thought it was off-road, and I thought, oh, I'm not interested, because at the time I didn't really like off-road stuff as much as on-road. But then someone pointed out that it was actually, a lot of it was on paths and road. So I wrote off to Rajat and said, you know, I could be quite interested in this.
Meanwhile, I was just emailing back and forth to Rajat, and he sent me the first copy of the course, and he has us going over Cardin Law. And I'm looking at it going, this is amazing, this is so cool, like, you know. And then he sent me another email and says, okay, what do you think? I'm thinking of going over 2 peaks. And he threw in the Tangling Law. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, he just did the toughest race in the whole world.
Okay, Abhijit. Huh? So which is the route you were telling me?
Okay. You can see that wall compound over there?
Wall compound. Yes,
yeah,
I can.
That is the road, and it goes down completely. There's a bike or something, I don't know what is it.
Yeah, it's definitely a bike is moving pretty quick.
Yeah.
And a motorbike.
It seems to be a super bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that car.
Yeah, kind of.
So that is the complete route.
Right.
And we'll be coming down over here.
Brilliant.
A lot of people discourage me about this. Most people actually discourage me about this. And I like that. I like that because that gives me a kick. Rather than saying, oh, you can do it. What's the point of doing it then? So it started off because of the army having said, you know, what are you talking about? You're mad.
We got a lot of negative. The army told us that it was impossible, that no human could do that.
When I'd gone to the army, I already had 30 folks who had said yes. What started happening though, the folks who had said yes were starting to say now a no, because they'd started reading up about high altitude sickness.
Everybody, you know, Sharon couldn't go, he didn't have anybody, and I said, Rajat, you really put this race on in too short of a time.
Ultra runners throughout the world were basically telling me, it's great to create an event which is difficult, you know, make it more difficult and all that. But then there's a very fine line between dangerous and a difficult event. We think this is actually a dangerous event. A lot of my friends from top business schools in the world, literally the very top schools in the world, from London Business School to Harvard to whatever else, they were telling me, what the hell are you doing? And it doesn't make business sense, having 3 people for an event. I mean, what are you thinking? It's not climbing Mount Everest.
And then he was really depressed, and he's going, I don't know, I'm trying to get the word out, but no one's signing up.
I was like, this can't happen. I have no money really. If I have any, I'll put in my regular business, not in this. I spoke to the guy saying, this is the situation, guys. I'm going to run on my own because I can't actually afford you guys coming over, and I can't charge you a bomb for this. And I got a message from Molly Sheridan saying, you know what, Rajat, this is going to be called the first edition of this run that you've thought about. I'll run with you if no one else does.
And I go, okay, that was it. That was like our little bond together.
I was like, listen, I won't run with you. I'll crew you. I'll be the race director. I'll be whatever. I'd never met these guys. I didn't know them. They were pretty much, Facebook and email and Gmail and maybe a call here or there. But that was it. And the race was on.
Sorry. No, Rajat, I'm recording this. I'm going to edit it.
Yeah, I'm Rajat. I'm the so-called race director, or whatever you call it. Thanks a lot for showing up, all these folks.
Hi, I'm Abhijit. I'm from Pune. I'm basically like working in some different area, but I'm always into adventure and stuff, and I've been mountaineering since 7-8 years, and I was never like aware of it, or so to say, never thought running as an adventure till now. And people generally do not think running as an adventure, and I want to promote this as an adventure.
Hi, I am Pramod. Again, I am cousin of Dr. Rajat Chauhan.
I am Jitin. I am Dr. Rajat's cousin. I am volunteering for Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark from the UK, and hopefully I'll be managing to complete the course. It's the first time I've really tried a race at such high altitudes. Everybody in the UK seems to think that this is an impossible feat, so I thought I'd have a go and see how far I can get. Well, it was my first time in India, so that was a bit of a shock anyhow when I first landed in Delhi. The next day I flew out to the Himalayas to Leh, and when I landed there it was totally different to Delhi. I mean, Delhi was all hustle bustle. Leh was more relaxed, but beautiful scenery. I mean, the mountains were just fantastic. But I noticed already the difficulty to breathe, because it was there were signs in the airport saying, "Be careful, this is a high altitude, you know, just take it easy."
I'm Sheridan, and Rajat, I think I'm butchering your name, I'm so sorry. But when you first contacted me about this race, I said absolutely, without a hesitation. I think I answered you immediately. Well, I think the first thing that struck me when I arrived here and went up to Cardin Law for the very, very first time and looked at the course, it was like being on the moon. I just felt like you're up at a peak, you have China, you can see China, and you're on the border of China and Pakistan. And then the trucks from China are coming up that road. We are in the very remote area of the world. When you get up there, you realize that.
I'm Bill. Professionally, I'm trying to cure aging.
Yay.
So I'm somebody that's already obsessed with doing the impossible. So this race seemed like the absolute most important thing for me to do. It was one of the most exciting experiences of my life. It was going into the unknown. You know, is it possible to actually run 138 miles over two 18,000-foot peaks? Who knows?
I remember the first time going up there thinking, well, I can hardly even breathe. Walking downhill was okay, but if I had to put in any effort and walk uphill, I could hardly breathe, and I thought, well, this is going to be impossible. I thought that there's no way you could possibly run at this sort of height.
It's kind of scary too, because we had to go through checkpoints, and there's a lot of military presence because of, you know, Pakistan and China are right there. They're not exactly friends, so you have to go through border checks. And we kind of sat, me and Mark and Bill, we're kind of sitting around before the race going, okay, is it physically possible for us to be running above, you know, 15,000 feet? Can you physically run that? Well, we didn't even know that. You know, none of us had done it.
The number one most important observation that we've had is that these roads are very dangerous.
Sorry?
And these roads are very dangerous.
With the traffic?
Yes,
Totally.
and the cars.
It was just scary because, you know, so many people said to me, you know, your head's gonna explode, or you're gonna have a brain, and oh my God, at that altitude. You know, it's like, you almost had to just put that aside and go, okay, I don't wanna hurt myself. I'm gonna go up there and just see what happens. I think it was all just such an experiment.
Cardin Law was 17,650 feet, and Tanglang Law was 17,550 feet. So Tanglang Law is about 100 feet lower than Cardin Law.
Yeah. I don't know. This seems like it's holding more water than. I mean.
Less water.
Yeah. Maybe it's already had some water in it. Let me see. So.
Okay.
What the way to get it the maximum full?
Just lift it up a bit.
It's like that. Just like let it sit on your leg like that. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Let's see. We didn't use a bottle and a half.
I didn't think it was holding that much.
You know what? I'll keep it with me and write things on it so that before I put it in tomorrow morning. All right. So I'll just leave this. There's too many things in there.
And then if Robert needs it, he can come find you again.
How you feeling this morning, Mark?
Yeah, a bit tired, not much sleep last night, but ready to go.
What do you think it's going to be like running in the mountains today?
Looks as if it's going to be cool to start with, and then it's going to get hotter later. So it should be a nice day.
How do you adjust your clothing for the changing in the temperature?
Probably start off with it just light wear, because I think once I start moving, I'll get hot. I'll get pretty hot. So I should wear just shorts and a t-shirt, I think.
Do you think you'll run in close proximity to the other runners in the high?
Well, I'll have to wait and see, but I tend to just run on at my own pace and just see how it goes.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, Rajat.
Morning, Robert.
How are you doing this morning on the start of the race?
Very good.
What do you anticipate is going to happen today?
I think all of them are going to do well. We should reach Leh by 6 or 8 p.m. Most of the runners. That's it, really. Yeah.
Okay. Why did you choose this particular route for the high?
So Cardin is the highest motorable pass. Yes, there's a little bit of controversy behind it, but it's high enough. And then the second highest is Tanglang La. So we really wanted to challenge what we are capable of doing. A lot of people have said it can't be done, and that's the reason we're doing it.
So what do you hope to accomplish by proving that this run can be done?
Human spirit. I mean, what we're capable of doing. It's not physical, it's all mental.
Well, for the start of the race, we had to drive a little bit further down the road to the start, which was just basically we all got out of the vehicles and they pulled across a sign that said start.
Good job. Doing good. Robert.
Safe on the run.
I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. Thank you.
Safe on the run.
Mark and Molly were in high spirits, jumping around, very excited about the whole run. The crew was super excited. My cousins, these are guys who wanted to do sports and whatever else, and they were getting to be part of something amazing. And they really were enjoying it to be part of that lot.
Got a truck coming. Truck coming.
We stopped the vehicles, jumped out, quickly pulled the banner across before any other vehicles came, because this was a major truck route, so we didn't have much time.
10, 9, 8, 7.
You just get to the point where you're going, why? Oh my gosh, it's really happening. And here I am at the start line in the middle of nowhere in the Himalayas, going to run. And then I say, Molly, okay, get a grip, calm down.
We will never have that feeling again. Standing at the starting line 2 years ago and not knowing, is this possible? What is going to happen? We had no idea.
2, 1.
Tell me again, how does it feel to see them off and running?
It's awesome. It's taken 9 months to put this together. It's finally great to take it off. So yeah, very, very happy about it. I wish I was running with them, but it's fine. I mean, I want 3 finishers. That's all I care about. Hello. Mark was the guy who came last to Leh, so he actually landed in Leh 5 days before the start of the run. Other guys were there, Molly and Bill were there, I think 2 weeks before, probably even earlier than that, because they kind of knew about the altitude. Mark couldn't come earlier because of his commitments for work and stuff like that. So that's all he could afford. But as soon as he actually landed in Leh, he was like, see, listen, I don't want to die. I don't care if I finish or not. And that was a very interesting statement to me.
I didn't at that point have a crew, but there was lots of different people there that were volunteers to be crew. So we just talked and a little bit about the race and possibilities of splitting up into different groups for crew. But yeah, I was probably a bit worried about the race at that point. And yeah, I think I said to Rajat, you know, I don't want to die on this race. And I was, you know, a little bit concerned about the altitude because at that point it was an unknown. So nobody had ever done the race before. I wasn't really sure what I was letting myself in for. I sort of gone out there on a bit of a whim and just to see what it was going to be like.
All right, Mark. Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, I feel good. It's like breathing through a straw.
How's the cold? Is the cold all right?
The cold?
Yeah.
I like the cold.
All right, cool.
I could hear my heart pounding as I started to get higher and higher. And every now and again I just slow right down and take it easy. And at one point near the top, I remember seeing in the distance the army had arrived for some reason, and I thought, well, what's going on here? And as I got closer, I realised there'd been an avalanche. And I panicked at that point because I thought, well, I've been struggling for the last 6 hours or so to get up this mountain, and maybe they might send me back down the wrong side. So I basically went directly across the avalanche, and I thought, well, the worst thing they can do is just arrest me or something. I just got to get through.
Well done, dude.
My plan of action, like I say, was to reach the top and start to go back down as quick as possible. And I also felt a bit nauseous at that point, and I thought, well, this could be altitude sickness coming, or it might not be. I really don't know enough about altitude sickness. All I know is that the longer you're up at altitude, the worse it is. So I had to get back down.
Go for it, go for it. Oh, good God. Let's go.
Start took more out of me than I thought.
That's okay, we are here with you.
Ask him, should we move ahead? We'll go 1 mile ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 mile ahead.
Okay. Good job, Bill.
3 days before leaving to go over to the start of the race, I suddenly got sick. And I don't know what it was, but I got some kind of bug, either flu or cold. I couldn't even sit up in a chair without falling over.
Okay, Bill. Well, I don't have any sore throat at all right now.
How are you feeling?
I'm actually not feeling very well.
And why is it that?
A little while after the interview last night,
Uh-huh.
I came down with a bad cold. I'm fighting it as well as I can. And right now I kind of feel like Bill will kill the hill has become possibly the hill will kill Bill.
No, what was happening was one of our runners, the day we were supposed to leave for the starting point, he started feeling some chest infection and whatever else. And we were like, what do we do? Is it high altitude sickness again? Because that's the big thing that's dreaded here.
So everybody else left. I was pretty depressed. I won't even see the starting line. We went to the hospital. They checked me out. They said I did not have altitude sickness, but I did have some kind of bug that was making me sick. And I think somebody said, you know, it's up to him if he wants to run the race.
So I went to the hospital this morning, even though it's the day before the race, because I was worried I might have pneumonia or pulmonary edema from altitude. And so they did what do you call that? ECGs, and they did chest X-rays, and they did a bunch of blood pressure stuff, et cetera, and listened to my chest, and they concluded that I did not have pulmonary edema, I did not have any liquid in my lungs, and they said that all I have is a viral cold. And they said, go ahead and run the race.
So, got at the campsite where everybody was already camped. I was still pretty sick. I got in the tent and I just stayed there. And next morning, I woke up, and to my surprise, I felt good. I felt like I could start this race. And so I went all the way to the top of Cardin Law, climbed up, got up to Cardin Law, ran down the other side, and then turned around and went back because Molly and I had a ceremony that we wanted to do.
Got to the top, and it was really a cool moment because, I mean, in the midst of feeling like crap, because you're trying to breathe and make it, and it's the tough part of the race. You're trying to go to the, almost 18,000 feet from 14,000. It's a bear of a climb, and having that little personal goal was very motivating.
And we had a commitment ceremony. We were clearly, the fact that we were the only people in the world besides Mark that wanted to do this race, that says there's something we have in common. There's something that is a bond between us.
Where did the bag go?
Oh, it's sticking in my pocket. I thought you had it out.
It was just an awesome moment in an awesome race in the middle of nowhere, and it was just a perfect moment for both of us because it was just, of all people, two people that are kind of like the only people that showed up for this race. We are a little wacky maybe, but.
Then as soon as we had that ceremony was done, I just said goodbye, Molly, and went running down the hill. That was the last I saw her during the race.
In order to sell this project to editors, I couldn't tell them, this race may go over 3 days, and I'm going to spend all 3 days sitting here covering this race. There's no way that was going to fly. I knew that. So I figured I need to show up, say, on day 2, and then hope, and I'll stay there for day 3, see the end of it, because that's going to be more dramatic. So I figured I'll just come in on day 2. And that's what I did. I didn't know that day 1 was going to be so eventful.
So, how long have you been going?
Can you run with me?
I can run with you, yeah, totally.
I started yesterday we started at like 6:30 a.m., but I had to take a break last night in the hospital.
Oh my God.
I know. Which I've never done before, but that was really brutal.
Right, so I've got a cell phone number for Rajat, the race organizer, and I've got a cell phone number for this guy who was the PR guy, but is actually just a crew member for Molly. And Rajat is doing everything. So he's the race organizer, he's the on-site doctor, and he is the one who's supposed to liaise with me to let me know what's going on. And, in sort of a prioritization triage, I'm not very high on the agenda, and I shouldn't have been.
So who is everybody again? You're sort of heading up the support for...
So I think I finally connected with the crew member of Molly to locate her, and knowing that she was coming down off Cardin Law towards Leh. So I figured, okay, I know that road. There's only one way to go. It's not going to be hard. I'll just head up there. And then I finally did get a hold of Rajat, and he said, meet me in Leh at this gas station. So I head up first to talk to Molly.
That was really brutal. It was a brutal summit. I was actually halfway down, but I couldn't keep anything in my stomach.
Oof.
And It was amazing. Now, our other guy, Mark, he is up at Upshee. The guy is just kicking ass. He's
Really?
so good. Oh, you're recording this. He's doing so amazing.
Uh-huh.
He's doing good. And actually, Bill's doing good, too. Bill had a really bad chest cold, so he is actually in Leh, and he took a break.
What I didn't know when I talked to Molly that day, running down Cardon Law, is that in the past 24 hours, 3 major events had happened. She had gone through a quasi-marriage ceremony with her boyfriend. They called it a commitment ceremony, basically. So she had just basically gotten married on the top of Cardon Law.
The race goes on. Thank you.
Oh, our rings.
The second thing is that during the first day of running, they started at 8 a.m. and she wasn't able to keep down food. She kept throwing up for much of the race that first day, to the point where she was so dehydrated that Rajat pulls her off the course and puts her in a hospital in Leh.
I was sick to my stomach. I'm puking. Then I'm just going, okay, this is not good. This is really bad. And it was like that for a couple of hours. And it was really weird because there was no cars going by. There was just nothing. I'm up there. I could see, South Pole way below. I got to get down there as fast as I can, and I can hardly keep moving ahead. So I just laid down on the road and put my feet up and just regrouped. I go, okay, I am here. I have no water. I got to get down there.
Molly got down. She wasn't looking good at all. And on a bit of an examination, including the pulse oximeter and stuff, I decided it definitely wasn't high altitude sickness. But when I checked other things, there was definite dehydration that she had. So I told her that we're staking right here. We need to go to the hospital. I'm not sure if we can start again. You might, if after the IV drips and all that, you are feeling okay.
And then the third thing that happened is that she, while in the hospital, is trying to recover. Well, there's an Indian patient who's come in who has high altitude pulmonary edema, HAPE, who is breathing really awkwardly and loudly, and who's breathing his last breaths, basically dying in the same room with her. And so I asked her later, did you actually see this guy die? And she says, I tried not to look over there, but yeah, I was kind of aware he was dying.
It was weird because the guy got really quiet. I mean, suddenly this man who's like loud and, struggling and breathing, he's like, there's no sound in the bed next to me. I mean, they laid him down and there's just no sound. And at the time, I thought, oh, good, they gave him a shot, or maybe they put him under, or I didn't want to think about the possibility of the fact that he just died.
So the story behind the guy was he had actually flown into Delhi, drove to Cardona the same day. You don't do that. You land at 11,000 feet, you go to 17,000, 18,000 feet or so. You can get high altitude sickness, you can get, pulmonary edema and whatever else. He lies down on the bed. 10 minutes down, the guy's gone.
She tells me none of this stuff, right? I mean, she's just, telling me kind of goofy stories about her 2 daughters and pretty chipper. But I piece all this stuff together later from subsequent interviews with her and with other runners. And I guess she did that not necessarily because she's a super private person, but because she had to maintain a certain mental mindset. I mean, she still had 100 more miles to go. And do you really want to be talking about, the guy that died next to you last night? No, I mean, you don't want to be in that place. So, crazy. It was a very strange interview. I mean, when I listened to it again later, it's just amazing to think how kind of chipper she is after all of that.
Is there anybody in Leh who you expect would be cheering for you, or is it?
You know what? Unfortunately, I think the city didn't know. I think it would be really good for the city to know that this is going on.
Yeah, I do too.
It'll bring commerce.
Right.
I think this year was really an experiment to see how it would work.
focus.
Ready, focus. 500 meters of gap is taken.
Yay, Mark! Go, 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 go! Good job, good job. Woo!
I remember it being extremely hot. I remember, you know, thinking, wow, this is like Death Valley, really. I was sort of getting burned. I remember the crew would stop regularly. I'd have to drink. I was drinking a lot more than usual. But we started to go uphill again, so I was pushing against the altitude again from this point. So you had the altitude, then you had the heat. So it was a double-edged sword at this point. So as we were sort of heading towards Rumsey, which is the base of the mountain, in the afternoon, I'm not sure what the temperatures were, but they were very high. I remember walking with a local farmer for a good 2 or 3 miles. He was telling me his whole life story. I was asking him about, he actually invited me in for a cup of tea, and I said, well, you know, I'd love to, but I'm in the middle of a race and I have to get over this mountain, so maybe next time, you know. So I walked with him for a while, the people were so friendly there, and he was telling me how he lived on a little farm. He sold his crops at market, and that was his life, and it was just so interesting. And he was pretty amazed that we were trying to attempt this race, and he wished me good luck and everything, which was really nice. And then from that point, we went further on to Rumsey. I remember having some rice before I set up for the next major climb. It was just me. I had another mountain to climb.
After I wrapped up talking with her, I needed to take some photos because I knew this was going to be a pretty visual story that would go in the magazine. And I could take decent enough photos that they publish them. So I would run up nearby little hills to get sort of wide-angle shots of her running in this like total moonscape. And that was a ton of fun. And I think she enjoyed that because, you know, this camera's clicking as she's jogging. And it keeps her mind off things.
I ran down to Indian Oil, which is right at Leh, and it's kind of like a main part of the race before you turn and go to another city. And at that time, Rajat was there again. I said, "Where's Bill? You know, how far ahead is he?" And he goes, "Oh, Bill's behind you." I go, "He's behind me? That's weird." And he goes, "Yeah, he just took a break. Everything's fine. He's just behind you, though." So, and I started kidding around and saying, "Oh, good, I'm gonna beat his ass. You know, I'm running fast." Then I go, "Don't tell him how far I am." And I kind of kidded with everybody, "Hurry, let's go," because Bill's behind me, which is always unusual.
All I can remember is feeling miserable and feeling like this was where I was going to die. I felt like I was barely hanging on to life. I couldn't do anything. I can remember people coming in, like some of my crew members, to see how I'm doing, and I just said, "I can't talk. I just feel bad." And I just said, you know, I remember telling Sabina or Nishal when they were standing next to my bed that I was going to die. This is it. I just couldn't possibly recover from this.
that was a really good day. I ran up to Karoo, and it was really hot part of the race, but it was flat and interesting. And I'm running along the whole time. I'm thinking Bill is going to be on, you know, catching up to me in any minute. And I kept looking back and I asked my crew, you guys see anybody? Do you see Bill's crew? Do you see the thing? I go, no. So we just kept on. I thought maybe he's just taking his time, or maybe he took a really big break. Just continued that from Karoo all the way up towards Rumsty. And then it's night. I'm running through the night, and as it got to be dusk and the whole day had gone and I'm running and just, you know, everything's going really well, the creeping feeling that Bill hadn't caught up to me was unusual. And it was so unusual knowing him that it started to play in my head, like, where the heck is Bill? This is really, he can't be that far back.
So I get in the van and go down to Leh to meet Rajat. And I hadn't met him before yet in person. I just talked on the phone. So we're at this gas station and we sit down and chat.
All right, what time of day did this start yesterday?
Yeah, 6:30.
All right. And everything's going well, and they start, and then, so tell me how the day goes.
Okay, so even before that, they had a pact, Bill and Molly, that they would reach top of Khardungla together. Bill, when he started off, wasn't feeling great.
I was going to say, meet me in 7 kilometers from here, and then if you don't see me in an hour and 40 minutes, come back for me.
Sure.
Hour and 40 minutes.
All the best.
Rajat's the one that tells me about the commitment ceremony that goes on at Khardungla the night before. And he catches me up to speed on some of the health issues that the runners have had.
So, tell me about this ceremony that happened. No one will give me any details.
So I interview Rajat, and then Bill comes by.
Well, we just kind of made commitments to each other. Something we've been planning on for 6 months.
So much of running is really mental. I mean, is that giving you a real mental boost during this ultra?
Not really. She ended up having some real difficulties getting up the mountain, and so it didn't give me a boost. I was going slower.
Bill got there sooner. Molly got there probably an hour later or so, maybe half an hour later. But the point is, Bill was waiting all that time. So was he getting affected by that? I think so, of course.
But he doesn't know why this chest thing has developed. And so he's a little bit, you know, worried about what that was all about, but still confident that he could finish the race.
I'm still pretty slow. This is not the typical me. I would be at 100 miles by now if I was running my normal race.
Are you feeling
I'm right
like
now
you're
just shooting to finish.
Yeah.
I would hate the thought of going back after all this trouble and expense to come here to go to India to run this race. I would hate the thought that I didn't finish the race.
So I get in a car to try to track down the third guy, Mark. And I get a little bit nervous because I realize this isn't going to be like a classic race where there's a very defined finish line. You know, there's a ribbon and, you know, there'll be cheering spectators and stuff, you know, something really obvious. And there's also no communications. So I was a little bit nervous about how I was actually going to cover this race. And so I figured, well, I better do what I can to make sure I don't miss the finish line. I'm just going to probably have to chill out in the middle of nowhere and hope I don't miss it. I set the odometer to 0, and I ask Rajat, so where is the finish line?
I told him that from the top of Thanglang is 32 kilometers. So there's no landmark for either a start or a finish for a race.
I said, is there anything around there? And he said, no, it's actually, you know, a wide desert expanse called the Mori Plain, and there's nothing there. And I didn't really know where Mark was gonna be. And Rajat didn't really know either. He sort of guesstimated based on the pace that Mark had been running, but you know, as you go longer in these races, you start to slow down. So it's a little bit unknown, like how much speed he was losing. I had tried to communicate to the Ladakhi driver, like, look, we're looking for this guy running on the side of the road. But, you know, communication was a little bit, you know, we didn't always connect, understand each other that well. But we figured we'd hit him somewhere on the way up Tanglang La. Because I just assumed, you know, it's not like there's gonna be a lot of people running on the side of the road. You know, this is gonna stand out, like as an odd thing, this Westerner running on the road. There'll be no way we can miss them, right? Now, I will admit, there were some moments where I was kind of tired, so I got a little bit of occasional cat naps. But somehow, and it must have been during those moments, somehow we didn't ever see Mark. We got to the summit of Tanglang La, and I had to decide, well, do I go back or do I go forward? If I go back, there's a chance I miss Mark finishing the race. And if I go forward, there's a chance I've missed him already, and I'm just gonna wait forever to find this guy. So I figured I don't want to miss the end of the race. I'll just go to the finish line and chill out. So that's what we do. We drive, and the odometer finally hits the end of it. And then I was really nervous, because like, I don't know actually where to hang out. I'm probably gonna miss the end of this thing. But I was like, I don't really have a choice. I just gotta sit here. So, you know, me and the driver are just twiddling our thumbs for hours until the sun sets. And I'm like, shit. You know, I guess I figured, well, I must have missed the end of the race. I just had no idea. I had no way to check any of this. And I started to have these images in my editors, the story that I was gonna tell them when I didn't actually, you know, what if I don't actually see the finish line? Like, are they gonna kill me?
I caught up with Molly around Thiksey Monastery. The temperatures were 40 degrees Celsius, and she told me that it was hotter than Badwater's. She's done Badwater, that's what she said that. And she was from Vegas, so she's completely fine about heat, but she was finding it hotter still, uncomfortable still. But she just kept moving on, which was a good part. And I said, this is great. I mean, you know, she's doing okay. I need to just catch up with the first guy and see how he's doing. So we just drove by and wished her all the best and found Mark around Rumsey. Rumsey is 100 miles into the run.
We are 16 kilometers away from the top.
16, 17. Rumsey is pretty much at the base of Tanglang La, so the 33, 32 kilometers till the top. I'd made up my mind that I need to kind of be with this guy and make sure he gets to the top. I asked him and he said, I'm actually okay. I mean, I don't need pacers. I don't use pacers during runs. I no issues, man. I'll just hang around with you, don't worry.
I remember as I sort of went into the next night, I was sort of starting to lose the plot a little bit. I was feeling a little bit low on energy. I'd had a full day in the sun. I was extremely dehydrated. I was tired at this point because I hadn't slept for quite a while. And again, we were hitting the altitude again, which was starting to affect me again. So I was breathing heavily, heart rate was going up. And I wasn't sure because it wasn't like the first climb where I was fresh and I got to the top of the first climb within 7 hours. This time I was a lot slower at this point. I had blisters, legs were aching, and I thought, well, this could be quite dangerous because I'm not going to get up there and off the mountain as fast as I want to.
Now the thing was, very soon after he started climbing, he started moving to the right side of the road. Now the right side of the road is where the cliff is, so if you go too much right side, you go all the way down the hill. So I said, I'll be on your right, I'll keep pushing it to the center. That's exactly what I was doing. It was interesting very soon to see him walking the way he was walking a bit awkward. The reason was he had blisters in both feet, completely blistered off, so the whole soles of both legs. But he was still marching on. We had been at it since 3, and it's like 7, 8, 9, and 10, and still, we haven't reached the top.
15 kilometers to the top of the mountain. 12-kilometer mark.
Yeah, well, the climb seemed to go on forever. It took a good, 5-6 hours just to get, a third of the way up the mountain. And it was incredibly cold. We were at snow level. And I remember Carshall gave me his huge jacket. I put that on. I was absolutely freezing. I put on all the clothes that I had, and I remember shivering. And I just felt really tired and nauseous as well. The headache was starting to come back, the altitude headache.
Now for me as a sports medicine doctor, I was like, what do I do? This is the guy who seems like the definite finisher. And he's kind of crucial for the race. So what do I do? I mean, he's not feeling well, he's getting hypothermic. I gave myself 10 minutes. I like, if it doesn't feel better in this time, I'm pulling him off. We had to put all the jackets that we could find, so all the 4 or 5 people around gave the jackets because he was shivering. Till then he was, comfortable, he was moving around in spite of the cold. I made sure, once he started getting back to normal, that I'll get this guy to the top. Because if he stops now, it's going to be a nightmare. Even though it's only 40-45 odd kilometers to the finish, he's completely blistered off, he has both feet. Will he finish next day? I mean, how can you say that? So I was like, no, he needs to finish top of the Angling line, then we'll figure out what to do.
I was getting more and more tired, and I think I was getting frustrated as well. I was a little bit annoyed with Rajat. I thought maybe this was some, because your mind plays tricks with you, and I thought maybe this was some kind of practical joke or something, or maybe there is no summit. These were the kind of things that were going on in my head. And I was keep saying to Rajat, how far is it to the summit? And he'd just say, oh, not far, not far. But and then a few hours later, I'd be saying, how far is it to the summit? And he'd be like saying, well, not far, not far. And I thought, well, how high is this mountain? Because it just seems to be going on forever.
Whenever he would ask me how much more, I mean, what was the best answer for me? I would just say, it's just around the corner. And I had no clue how much more.
And then I think I was just I was so tired and nauseous as well. The headache was starting to come back, the altitude headache. And I just couldn't get warm. And it must have been sub-zero at that point. And I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was getting a bit confused, so I don't know if it was a combination of dehydration, a touch of hypothermia, tiredness, and the altitude. All these factors were sort of coming into it at this point, and I think I was sort of punch drunk, you could say. I was sort of veering around, and I think they were a little bit concerned I was getting a bit too close to the edge of the mountain at some points. And I remember them sort of angling me back and getting me on the right path.
Again, I thought he was fitter or in a better shape than he actually was. Because later on, with interviews and stuff like that, he's actually mentioned when he was wavering to the right, he actually had no idea what he was doing. It didn't seem like that. Now, that is the first most important symptom of high altitude sickness.
Well, Rajat kept saying the summit's coming, and then I still couldn't see the summit, so I just had to go along with it. And I thought, well, I am feeling really sick now. If the summit's not here within the next hour or so, that's it. I'm gonna have to go back down the other side because this is getting pretty bad. And eventually we did get to the top. And I think I briefly stopped for one quick picture against the sign just as proof. And then I just wanted to get down. So I thought, this is a life or death situation. I thought, if I hang around here, the altitude sickness could set in, and I can't imagine getting to hospital very quick from the top of this mountain.
So I was a little bit nervous about how I was actually going to cover this race, and I started to have these images of my editors, the story that I was going to tell them when I didn't actually, what if I don't actually see the finish line? Like, are they going to kill me? So we're just parked on the side of the road. I'm just waiting, and I look around, and it's a really broad, flat expanse, and then in the distance will be these really high Himalayan peaks. And there's just a whole lot of nothing. It's just high altitude desert, and they call it the Mori Plain. And, occasionally you'd see these shepherds and a whole flock of sheep kind of go like little dots on the horizon. And that's it, that's the only thing there. So, shouldn't there be some car from somewhere else? I have them drive back and forth around that whole odometer endpoint, a few miles in either direction, because I think there's got to be like a caravan of cars or jeeps that are with the race, setting up a finish line or just chilling out at the finish line. I just saw nothing like that. So I figured, well, I don't want to miss interviewing this guy. And I knew that after the race was over, they were going to meet at this truck stop on the road from Leh to Manali. And it was called Whiskey Nulla. So I figured, well, I better go to Whiskey Nulla so I can at least interview Mark and get the information about what it was like to finish, or did he not even finish? I mean, that was the other question mark. Maybe the dude just got so sick, he pulled off the course. I just had no idea. What I didn't know, and this is sort of the bad planning on my part, I didn't think to ask Rajat, so what's the elevation of Whiskey Nulla? And it turns out that it's at 15,500 feet. So I've done a bunch of mountaineering, and I've slept overnight before at a little under 14,000. And I know from those past experiences that once I get beyond 10,000, it's a little difficult for me to sleep at night. So I lay there for several hours after most people have gone to sleep. And I was really kind of shaky or nervous or on the edge, and I wasn't really able to breathe quite fully. And then I was really, really thirsty, really thirsty. And at this point, I'm really nervous that I actually started to wonder, am I gonna make this scene? I just really fell out of it, dizzy, dehydrated. Didn't know I was gonna make it to the morning. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I was definitely in a bad place. So I finally just go into the little tent that has the concession stand, and I just grab stuff and figure I'll pay them in the morning. And then in the morning, I'm really worried, I need to get out of here. I need to get at a lower elevation. And of course, by then, I don't really know what the odometer reading should be, so I don't really know what the finish line is anyway. And we chill out for a few hours waiting and watching, and I didn't see anybody. And so then I'm like, right, just have to drive back to Leh, and my flight is out of Leh. So I fly back to Delhi, and I have no idea what happened. I have no idea if the race ever finished. I have no idea what the story was.
As soon as we got there, I kind of told guys, I need to go back and check on the other folks.
I'm getting ready to get back into the race. I took a break at the right below Rumsty. My crew's all ready to go, and here comes Rajat just pulling up in a car, and he pops out. And I said, hi, what's happening? Gosh, have you seen Bill? And he goes, Bill's in the hospital.
I told her that Bill's not feeling well. I know he's in the hospital. I don't know how well he's doing.
He kind of was very evasive. He said, Bill's in the hospital. I'm not exactly sure, what's happening, but he's in the hospital, and I just want to let you know that. I go, okay. I was like in shock, and I just, I kept drilling him. What's the matter? How bad is it? Do you know? And he's going, no. I go, is he totally out of the race? Is there a chance he's coming back into the race? And he goes, he's not coming back in the race. And I knew when he said that in the tone that I knew things were not good.
I was like, listen, it's serious enough, and that's why we're flying him down. Definitely he's out of the race, so there's no issue about that. But this should not affect you. If you want to carry on, you carry on.
And then I realized my mind is not in the game. I could no more concentrate on running the rest of that race and worrying about Bill. I knew it was over because the overwhelming fear of what will happen to Bill was bigger than the race. I felt, worried and sick about Bill. I felt bad about my crew. I had to leave my crew there. They'd worked so hard to get me that far, and I'm just leaving them. All the emotions of everything just went to hell in a handbasket, really. And we drove back, and it was a really long drive because I'm thinking, oh God, I hope it's not bad. I just hope it's not that bad.
When I was in the hospital here in Leh, one of the main things that went through my mind is that I wouldn't see Molly again. And it was like a really depressing kind of thing. I really thought that I was going to die and not see her again. The last time that I would have seen her was seeing her run down the mountain when I left her at Cardin Law, and that was it.
We get to the hospital, jump out of the car. I walk into Bill's hospital room, and he looked horrible. He looked up at me and he just said, oh, you dropped from the race.
Well, as soon as I'd reached the summit, briefly had a photograph next to the sign, and started to go down. But I was really feeling really bad. We didn't actually get that far down the mountain, maybe a kilometre, less than a kilometre, say. And I just felt so tired. I thought I've got to sit in the vehicle for a rest.
Now what happened here, the mistake was they crossed the Tanglangla and they rested very soon after that. And they sat in the car for 2 hours. Now I can't blame them at all. In retrospect, it might look wrong, but it was the wrong decision because they were tired, but they rested at a high altitude. You need to go down to 14,000 feet to rest and maybe come back again.
And we sat in the vehicle for a little bit, which was a big mistake because we were all still at altitude. And I remember the crew feeling a bit sick as well. I felt sick, but the crew started to feel sick.
Fine, that happened. 5 people sitting in a car, breathing out of carbon dioxide, breathing in the same thing again. and very little oxygen. I mean, oxygen content at those heights are less than 33% of whatever air would have low down in Delhi or New York or London.
After a while, it sort of dawned on me that this is wrong. This is wrong. Got to get going. We've got to get down because we could actually just fall asleep here and die. We've got to get going again. So I made an effort to get out, get going down the hill. And as we went further down, we started to wake up and sort of snap out of this phase of feeling nauseous and sick, and then the sun was starting to come up, and I felt a lot better. And we hit a plateau. There's sort of you could see like a long sandy road into the distance, and these were the Murray Plains, which was a total. Again, the scenery just seemed to change every day, and this was a different, beautiful section of the race. I knew it was about maybe only 10k to the finish, but I couldn't see the finish line in the distance. And I was sort of expecting some, huge, obvious finish line, but I should have known better from the start that it was just a low-key sort of start, so it should be a low-key finish. I couldn't see anything in the distance, and then eventually I went over a dip, over a hill, and then
ऐसे नहीं यार ये yes
Hey, nice.
I just want to say I couldn't have done it without the team. They were absolutely, they were fantastic. And yeah, I'd just like to say I'm privileged to be the first person to run Rajat's course.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing it.
It was an amazing course. Probably the toughest race I've ever done. Coming up that first hill and then thinking you have to do another hill around him. Just, I really enjoyed it. And it's been great. And thanks to everybody. Everybody's really helped. Including all the guys that have done all the tents and the food. So it's just been a fantastic, the best experience I've ever had.
So it was great. I actually really wanted 3 finishers, basically 100% finishers. But as Mark was saying, a lot of people thought that this was undoable. And I'm glad at least one guy finished it. And a very good competitor at that, and in a good time. I think he did 48 hours, 50 minutes. That's not bad at all, considering 2 of the highest motorable passes were there. Bill and Molly were such a sport. I mean, I had to leave them at the airport today, and they were such a sport. They both want to come back and do this next year.
So after the race, I was feeling a bit like a disgrace to my profession. I mean, I'd essentially missed the story at some level. And so I was going to have to recreate it by calling Mark and to get what ended up happening. And I called this guy, and he struck me as sort of your classic sort of English adventurer. I mean, I asked him why he's doing this, and the response was some variation of, because it's there. I just want to see if I can do it.
It didn't really sink in straight away. I thought, maybe there's some more to do, or is that, But when I finished, I was more relieved than anything that I mean, seriously thought I could have actually died on the race. So that I was relieved that I'd actually survived. I was disappointed that the other runners hadn't finished.
There's at some point during the interviews with Rajat where he tells me, there are no limits on what humans can do. There's no limits to human possibility. And I actually don't agree with that. I think there are definite limits to human possibility, and that this particular group went right up to the edge of those limits. And that's kind of what I end up telling people. I mean, I view this kind of ultramarathon, the sort of highest ever ultramarathon, as something akin to a 21st century explorer.
When we were flying out of Leh, It was surreal. You know, Bill's next to me, and, you know, I was right next to the window looking out at Leh. It was the saddest feeling. It was so sad. It was like we came so far, and I just felt like it was unfinished business. We're leaving, and it, you know, just, you know. I remember the planes taking off. I'm looking at that beautiful little city, and all these clouds just like covered it up. As we're flying away, it was like, you know, like it was the end of the story. That was the end. The clouds just covered it up, and we flew away, and it was just like, you know, that was the end.
I do these races because it's fun. I really like adventure. I'm obsessed with what's around the next corner and what's over the next hill. And I always have the saying that if the race stops being fun, then quit. I was really depressed. I felt so bad that I couldn't complete this race. And it's been a big struggle for me for 2 years now, okay? It's been, I gotta come back. I gotta come back and do this race.
When Mark looked at me, that was enough. I knew what was going on, and you know, we just hugged without saying much. And I was like, wow. It wasn't as if someone else had finished the run. It was as if I had achieved something which was called impossible by everyone else. So it was the biggest achievement in my life, really.
Okay. Arms up. Nice. Good job. Oh, you know what? Thanks, everybody. All your support, honestly. It was so nice to see all your faces out there. Just want to say thanks. It was awesome. I'm glad that it's over. Still clear. Yay! Nice work! Yay!
Yeah. Congratulations, Lou. Here.
Super job.
I can't believe that I did it. Toughest thing I've ever done. There's nothing tougher than this.
Aliyah!